This segment has been sponsored by Pro Bikes Caribe. Pro Bikes Caribe, get yours today. Before we get into today's interview, hear a little bit about the book from the author themselves.
Hi, I'm Natasha Brown-Alleyne, author of Walking on Water from Trinidad and Tobago. This book offers encouraging, motivating, life-changing, faith-fortifying, impactful, and transformative inspirations for men, women, and youth. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, iBooks, Kobo, and personally from me, the author. Email me at natashabrownallen.books@gmail.com.
Greetings, listenership. Welcome to TLC, Tropical Literature Creatives, the podcast where we interview authors of Caribbean heritage about themselves and their literary works. Some of them you've heard about, and some of them you'll be hearing about soon enough. Today we have with us Natasha Brown-Alleyne, author of the book Walking on Water. Natasha, welcome to Tropical Literature Creatives.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, thank you very much for accepting, ma'am. Which Caribbean island do you hail from, or do you have ties to?
Trinidad and Tobago.
I usually ask persons who are on the program, or rather, a scenario I give to them is this. Imagine that we encounter each other at the airport for the very first time. It's my first time in Trinidad and Tobago. What would you recommend that I try, whether it be a place, a thing, a food, or anything?
Well, once you're in Trinidad and Tobago for the first time, of course, you must try some doubles, some roti. If you eat crab, perhaps some crab and dumpling. For me, who don't eat crab, you will definitely want to have some of our fish with either provision or dumplings.
All right, all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, courtesy Natasha Brown-Alleyne, try some of our doubles or roti or fish or curry crab. Okay, Natasha, your book, Walking on Water. Can you tell us a little bit about it in your own words?
Certainly. What I can tell you is this. I love writing devotionals, and this is where it was born. I would send out devotionals as I'm inspired on mornings to my friends, sometimes on Facebook, sometimes WhatsApp, various social media platforms. And as I have done so over the years, people kept telling me, both friends and family keep telling me, why not compile these beautiful writings into a book? And I had never thought about it before, but I kept hearing it over and over and over. And when COVID hit, I had the opportunity to work from home, and that allowed me a little flexibility to be able to focus on doing this book, Walking on Water.
So we have the origins of the book. Are you a full-time writer?
No, I am not actually. That's why it took me so long. I'm not a full-time writer.
You had mentioned that the devotional was made up of writings that you would have done already, that persons had encouraged you to put together into one document. As you had most of the writings already that would have been sent out to persons, or you would have compiled them. How long did it take you to put the book together from conception, idea, to having a finished product in your hand?
1 year.
1 year.
Yes.
Okay. Well, why did you choose the option of self-publishing as opposed to going the route of a traditional publisher?
From my story, I did not know anything about publishing a book because this was my first book. But I had a friend who had published a book about 2 years prior. So I contacted him and he referred me to someone who was an editor and also helped him to self-publish his book. And I used that route, not because I compared it with any other route. It was what was available to me, what was recommended to me.
No, and that's fair enough. As human beings, and it's something that I've been learning. I've been learning. Sometimes there are persons who make decisions based on facts, and sometimes there are persons who make decisions based on references because we kind of trust the source of the information sometimes. So,
Correct.
yeah, so I guess it was a case of this.
Yes.
And having gone down the self-publishing route, uh, are you comfortable with making that decision, or there are certain things that you think you would do differently if given the opportunity?
I totally enjoyed that experience, and I think the person who was recommended to me, she made the process easy, and therefore I will not do it any differently based on my experience. I had a wonderful experience in publishing my book because of her ease in being able to relate to me as a first-time author and walking me through the process and basically doing 90% of the publishing part of it for me. I am truly grateful, and I would not have had it any other way.
Mm. As you chose to go the route of self-publishing, did you get assistance from any other professionals, for example, editors?
Well, as I mentioned before, the person who I was referred to, she is an editor, and she is a published author of several books. So she edited my book as well as the service of self-publishing.
Having gone through the process now, do you see yourself having to acquire any additional skills to become better in the future?
Most definitely. Because it was my first book and she did most of it, I'm still somewhat deficient in that area of being able to publish my own book without any external assistance. And I think that I would want to be able to reach to that comfortable point of not needing an external assistant to be able to do it on my own. So that skill will definitely be welcomed. Yes.
Did you have to learn any additional skills such as marketing, promotion, digital marketing?
Yes, in terms of about a year later, because at the initial stage, what I did in terms of marketing my book, I held a book launch. It was during COVID. I held a book launch. I sent out flyers. I invited people via WhatsApp, and I knew nothing about pre-ordering books as I do now, so that I could have probably launched into that. So in my next book, I'll be able to venture into that part of it. But that's how I did mine. I did a pre-order, but it was mostly a physical pre-order where I would have ordered books from Amazon, and locally persons who were interested in the book pre-ordered, so that when it came, I had sales already waiting at our launch, at our physical launch, which was aired on Facebook. And also I had a second launch in Trinidad because I presently live in Tobago. So I had one in Tobago and one in Trinidad.
Oh, so you're making sure you're getting both islands, Trinidad and Tobago. Nobody's being missed.
Most definitely, yes, because I live in Tobago, as I said, but I'm originally from Trinidad. So that's where I born and grow. So my second launch was actually my hometown in Trinidad.
How has the reception been from your book?
For me, because I have nothing to compare it to, I think it was great. It has been great for me. It's my first book, and I'm happy with the reception. I'm happy with the way persons have been able to been empowered and inspired by this book. And when they meet me personally and be able to tell me, I am blessed by this book, I think that for me is the greatest blessing, to know that someone has been blessed by my book, because that was my intention. My intention was never to get rich off a book, but my intention was to enrich other people's lives by it. And I think it is accomplishing that. So for me, it has been a tremendous success.
As that has been the response that you've gotten, do you have intentions of doing a follow-up book of the same genre?
Yes, most definitely, because persons are asking, okay, we've read out this one, we're waiting for another one, you know? And up to last week, someone is like, what's happening? Are you doing another book? Like right here locally. And it has been, you know, popping up here and there. When is another book coming out? Because now I'm rereading this one, so we're waiting on another one. So yes, I am working on a second book in this same genre in terms of devotional, inspirational books. This one, however, is focused more on women, so it will be more driven and purposefully so for women to be empowered. This one, the first one that I have is general. Children love it, adults love it, teenagers love it, men love it, women love it, and that's why I thank God the way it has turned out, because it has really been a book that has been a blessing to every um to every type of person that I've come across to be able to be blessed by it. But the other one that I'll be doing will be more specific to women.
I think we can use that as a gauge to determine whether a book has been successful or not. When it is that persons are asking about the sequel or the follow-up, I think that you'd have done something right.
Yes, thank you so much. And I think so too.
Having gone through the self-publishing experience, and in your case, you'd have had the assistance of that colleague. If it is that someone were to go the route of self-publishing the way that you did, what advice would you give to them? Is there anything you would tell them to do to prepare themselves for it?
Yes. The first thing I would tell them to do is make sure what you are going to publish is completed, because that was one of the first questions. Are you done with the manuscript or are you still working on it? In terms of self-publishing, you have to be complete with your manuscript. So that's the first thing. Then your second thing is to know your level of grammar, your level of English. Is it that you will need someone to do heavy editing, medium editing, or light editing because of your fluency in the English language or your aptitude in the English language? So you have to know your skill set and what you might be great at and what you might be deficient in, so that you'll be able to select the right assistants for you to propel you forward.
You had mentioned that a number of persons of different age groups have liked your book. For reading purposes, I imagine that they would have provided inspiration, comfort. What would your thoughts be on your book being adopted for the purpose of reading and comprehension, or for persons to improve on those skills? What would your thoughts be on something like that?
I think it will be excellent. Because for example, I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 11, 12 teenagers within my own personal space and personal affiliation. And they would say, Auntie, I'm well able to read this book. Or, Auntie, some of the words are big. And when they call me and say, Auntie, this word is big, you know what I tell them? I say, go look it up in the dictionary. And then they are able to learn a new word in that instance. All the persons may not have that kind of challenge, but you see, for those teenagers, some of the words they are able to learn from and therefore widen their vocabulary. So it is a book rather that attracts and is well able to feed and facilitate any age group. And that's one of the powerful things I believe about this book. And as I go from day to day and I meet with people, even people of different, what I would say, different status in life, different career groups, whether they be on the lower scale or on the higher scale, they are able to identify with this book. People who know me personally, because I also speak. I also, so in my speaking, people who hear me, they say, sometimes I actually hear you saying these things through the book. They actually hear my voice as they read this book. And that for me is so, so powerful. So in terms of whether it can be used in grammar, yes, it could be used in church. I think it's a winner in that area, if I may say so myself.
As the book is made up of a number of devotionals, is there any that is of particular significance to you?
Oh my, several of these, because most of them are written from my own experiences. I've shared in the book some of my own experiences, some of my own prayers, and some of my own answers to prayers. So, for example, I shared in one of them how one day as I got to work, I was experiencing this feeling that I had forgotten something at home. And I prayed about it because I didn't have time to run home to get it. So I prayed about it and I left it in God's hands. And before you know it, my husband came with the very said thing that I knew that I had left home that I needed for the day. So God had answered my prayer in that way. And I had shared that as a devotion to people that morning. And persons who, you know, can identify with that kind of experience. Also, I love shoes. I share in the book about how I love shoes and how I had to overcome being a shoeaholic. And people can identify with different types of their own likeness for something that they have been struggling with, and that they too can overcome if I overcame certain things, if I prayed for certain things and God answered in certain ways, whether it be big or small. They are well able to identify with those kinds of things and say to themselves, well, you know what? God can make me overcome this, or God can even answer prayers in this. So, but for me, the one of my most liked or best ones will be the one about Peter walking on water, because that's the foundation of where I got the name for this book, Walking on Water. That story where Peter is walking on water towards Jesus and he begins to sink. And in his sinking, Jesus, he cries out to Jesus, Lord, save me. And Jesus stretches forth his hand and saves him. And it is here I got the premise. He was called to walk on water, but he began to sink in the water he was called to walk upon. And sometimes we find ourselves sinking in the very same thing we were called to conquer. Why? Because we turn our eyes off Jesus. And this for me is the one that really thrills me, because as I said, this is the foundation and where I got the title for the book, Walking on Water. And merging my heels with it, because if you look at the front of the book, you will see a female in heels walking on water, and of course a man as well walking on the water. So it appeals to both genders, that you too can conquer and overcome what you were called to do.
And I guess with a sense of style as well. Imagine with the heels and everything.
I tell you, if you see the heels, man, high heels about 6 inches, blue standing out, fashionable.
Fashionable. Fashionable. Uh, the genre that you're doing right now, it it falls under inspiration. Do you think that
Yeah.
with this experience and doing this particular book, would you be interested in exploring another kind of genre?
I have thought about it, but I'm wondering how my audience may accept it. Save an next step, perhaps, if I go into, because I'm thinking about two genres that I could probably explore. Children, something around children's stories. In fact, I was sitting one day and not much to do, and I think I typed out an entire story on my WhatsApp about a few weeks ago for children. And I'm like, wow, this is so beautiful. So maybe I may do I may do a children book upcoming. Or I'm thinking also maybe something along the line of marriage, family life. I can do that as well. The one that I think my audience might be, how did this come in about will be if I do something perhaps on romance, like a romance book. I thought about it, but I don't think I'll go down that route. Maybe for children and maybe for on marriage and family life.
With the publishing of your book, have you been in demand for any other kind of activities, for example, speaking engagements or maybe hosting functions?
I can't say that there's a direct correlation with in that regard, because I've always been speaking. But what I do know is that since my book, I have been using it in most of my deliveries. So I would use different devotions in my book
Mm-hmm.
as I do my presentations, thereby, bringing some more awareness to it for people who may not know. So I will quote directly from my book, and it's a wonderful feeling because as a speaker, you sometimes quote from other writers. It's a totally different experience when you are the speaker and you are quoting from your own book. It's quite empowering for me, being my first. And most times when I'm through with a speech and I quote from my book, someone at least will come up to me, a few persons will come up to me and ask, where can I find that book? Because even that little quotation that you did was so powerful.
Mm. To me, it sounds like a form of marketing as well because you're getting the word out about your book too.
Correct, yes.
And that is very creative and interesting at the same time. As you've published this book, and you said that the other book, you're toying with the idea of it. What are your plans for 2024 where writing is concerned?
It is my intention to publish my women's book that I have been working on from since I completed this one in 2021. It is my intention to complete it and publish it by October, which is my birthday month, so that in my birthday month I can do the launch. This is my intention. I'm about 90% there. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and we'll see how it goes.
Right. I mean, we have tangible goals, we have timelines, and I guess we have to work towards them.
Yes. It's difficult when you're not a full-time writer. So sometimes the deadlines get pushed back, but I'm really hoping I'll be able to meet this deadline.
Where your book is concerned, Natasha, Walking on Water, where can we get copies of it?
Definitely, you can get copies on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, iBooks, Apple, Kobo, and other places. As well as if you are in Trinidad, you can also get it at a bookstore there in Mayaro, JK's bookstore. And if you are in Tobago, you can contact me directly, the author, 2731844, to get your copy. And the good thing about that one is that you will get your autograph right away. So
Okay.
yes, it's available on Amazon for everyone to be able to benefit from it.
Okay, VIP treatment.
Definitely.
We're about to wrap up the interview, but before we do you have any advice to persons who may be listening to this podcast right now?
What I can tell you is oftentimes we think about limitations rather than propelling forward. I never wrote a book, or I don't have the money, or whatever excuses we come up with, I don't have the time. I want to encourage you, whatever it is that is resting upon your heart, whatever positive thing that is burning in that passion space in your mind, go for it. Go for it. Because each of us has a place in this world. Each of us has a purpose in this world. I may not be able to reach a person you will be able to reach, and you may not be able to reach people I may be able to reach, but we can all reach somebody with our passion, with our God-given talents, with our God-given skills. So you continue to dream, but more than that, turn that dream into a reality. My favorite text is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And that goes for you too. You too can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. So continue to let that passion burn within you, but don't let it stay within you. Let it come out of you so that somebody else can be blessed as a result of it. Go for it.
Okay. Thank you very much for those words. Listenership, Natasha Brown-Alleyne, author of the book Walking on Water. Natasha, thank you very much for making yourself available to me.
Thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure indeed.
Okay. All right. You take care, ma'am.
You too.
You've been listening to TLC
Tropical literature creators, if you've heard something of interest or something you like, reach out to us. Reach out to our authors. Follow us on social media. We look forward to hearing from you.